Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be doing a fun little test in my 2013 Camaro. It's about 35 degrees out, not even probably. And I want to see how long it takes the oil temperature to get up to temp, just from normal driving and normal startup, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this light off first. So sorry about the lighting, but I want to make sure that I can leave right after I start this. I already got the key in it, ready to prime and ready to rock and roll. Oil temp 35. We've also got the oil temp gauge. These are a real live gauge. They're not some weird computer calculated thing. So let's go ahead and fire it up. Okay. That's strange that it just jumped 10 degrees on cranking, but I don't really believe that. But anyway, that's fine. We'll see what everything says. I don't know how accurate the OBD2 this dealio is, but it's probably pretty accurate, I would imagine. But we'll see. Let me just get out of the garage here and get on the road, and then we can get some better angles. This garage is a little bit tight. There's been a lot of debate on the internet about cold starting your vehicle, and maybe this will give us some information on cold starts. Okay, why does it look like this froze up? No, that little green light's still moving. What else can I look at that would tell me? Yeah, everything's working. Well, let's rock and roll with that for now. Unfortunately, I might... Hold on, guys. Just to be safe, I'm going to reset this. Just to make sure that we're actually getting a good reading. Okay, it's actively trying to reconnect, which tells me it's going to reset. So let's see what we get. Obviously, I'm idling a little bit longer than I normally would, but not too bad. Okay, let's get on the road. See how this looks. If it's stuck, it's stuck. We'll use the regular mechanical gauge. Alright. Maybe it has a bottom limit. No, it shouldn't. I've looked it up before, actually. There we go. Okay, it's moving. So I don't know why it jumped that 10 degrees right at first. That seems very unlikely. Maybe just the combustion temperatures made a little tiny hot spot in the oil. I don't know. Anyway, we'll just kind of keep watching it. We're already up to 50. We are driving nice and early to work. Now, the interesting thing about warming up oil for me is that I have a huge downhill section of my commute right here to start the day off. So there's not going to get a lot of oil temp, but oof, they salted us a little bit last night, guys. So I was driving home from work and I'm like, wow, they really didn't salt anything. I can get away with taking the car. But they definitely salted this hill a little bit, and it's also icy as fudge. Oh, wow, that's going to be fun in a Camaro. Good Lord, this was not the day to take the car. Oh, we're good. We're good, guys. Hold on a minute. Oh, my God. All right, hold on. This is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. Oh, jeez. Woo! She's a little slippery, folks. All right, I know I've scoped this route out coming home from work yesterday. We should be fine for the rest of it. I knew that hill might be a little sketchy. We're having some fun, though, folks. We're up to 60-degree oil temperature. Going downhill. It's been 3 minutes and 45 seconds since I turned the car on, basically. A little less than that because the camera's been running longer. 62. Yeah, stop sign. Oh, I'm gonna get caught behind the freaking garbage truck again. This happened to me last Friday, guys. Unbelievable. I could take this. Let's do this, just so I don't be sitting there idling and ruining our test. Take a left. We're going through the hood. Yeah. If you know where I am, you know where I am. It's fine. Up to 70 almost. Still obviously not coming up on our gauge, just because that's 100-degree minimum on the gauge. Okay. We're going to be taking the backwards route to get where we're going, but it is what it is. Can I go this way? Yeah, let's do this. I'm just kind of driving normal. It is a standard car, so you know you do wind up revving it out just a little more sometimes, but nothing too crazy. This thing has 99,000 miles, by the way. She's doing great, I would say, overall. I did have to put axles in it the other day, or last year, I mean, the other day. But other than that, it's been really good, so can't complain. All right, now we're going to be getting on the road that I would have normally gotten on a little sooner, but it really won't ruin this test by any means. 82 degrees. We're at not even at 100 yet on there. Coolant temp, I don't know. I mean, the center of the gauge is like 190. Actually, there might be a coolant. Yes, 153 on coolant. We'll leave the coolant temp up. So coolant on this car rises much faster than the oil temp, I've noticed. There's 8.75 quarts of oil in this baby. So that definitely is something to do with that. And I'm just kind of shifting normal. Obviously, I don't want to... those gauges don't flash, by the way. It's just the camera. But yeah, we'll kind of watch the coolant temp. We'll watch the oil temp. I wish I pulled the coolant temp up earlier. However, you can kind of interpolate between, you know, it would have been at about 35 or so, and it went up to 153 before I turned it on. So you can kind of get an idea where it was. Close enough anyway. We're really looking for when it hits the, you know, 190 to 95 mark, and we're looking for oil temp when it hits about 210, which, spoiler alert, it's going to be a while. This car's oil temp does not heat up very quickly at all, for whatever reason. That's just how they are. Big oil cooler in a sense, but if you've watched other videos of mine, you'll know that on a track, these cars don't actually keep the oil cool super well. So I don't know why it takes so long to get up to temp. It's as if the oil cooler is very, very good, but honestly, my experience on a track is that it's really not that good. So I don't know, but and you're seeing the numbers. We're learning together live. Somebody's about to ask in the comments, which you should still comment, by the way, and you should like and subscribe. But they're about to ask, well, Jake, where is the oil temperature sensor and how does it work? Well, boy, do I have an answer for you. The oil temperature sensor on an LS motor is where the oil level sensor is. It's the same sensor. It's part of the same housing, I guess I could say. So it's in the right side of the oil pan. It's a little plastic sensor housing looking thing with one connector going to it. On a mid-2000s Silverado, for example, that sensor would be just the level sensor. On the Camaros and Corvettes, I'm sure, and stuff like that, it's also a temperature sensor. And you're asking yourself, oh, is it some weird thing where it calculates RPM and engine load? It is not. It is a 3-wire connector. One wire is for the level, one wire is ground, and the other wire is either a 0 to 5 volt or a 4 to 20 milliamp. I think it's a 0 to 5 volt output, and its effective range is like, you know, 0 to 300 or 0, you know, whatever it is, negative 20 to 350. You know, it's got a wide enough range, obviously, for measuring oil temperature on a normal vehicle. So with that being said, we're at 185 coolant temperature. We're at 123 oil temperature. This is, I would say, very normal for this car. You can see that's consistent because we're starting to come up on our manual gauge now. We're having the weirdest commute in the world where I've been rerouted. I'm getting stuck behind snow plows, even though it's like springtime. I'm in a Camaro. That's what happens when you're running a test. This is real world for a reason. But we're gonna get up onto 55-mile-an-hour road here, and we'll see where that oil temp takes us. So with this car, I mean, you can see we're about 9 minutes into the commute, and it is still not warm enough that you'd ever want to do like a really high RPM pull. Now, would you blow the engine up doing a high RPM pull on 134 degree oil? Absolutely not. But you like to let things get fully up to temperature before you do stuff like that, you know. Trans temp, by the way, also stays cold like forever and a day. The trans will be the last thing to warm up in this car. It will get right to like 160-ish It really won't hit 180 unless you're beating on it and going on a track or like curvy road or something like that. If you're just cruising on the highway, it usually stays relatively low. Oil pressure will drop a little bit as your oil gets warmer, obviously. That's very typical of an LS motor. It's just kind of how they work. So you can expect to see that come down. But we're just at cruising RPM 1500. The old Chevrolet is doing its thing as always. We got a crap ton of sunlight in our eyes. Coolant's at 196, so coolant's essentially fully warmed. I don't really think it moves much off that under normal driving conditions. Oil's still at 145, so it's going to take quite a bit of time, like I said, longer than the coolant for the oil to come up to temperature. So we'll just kind of see. At cruising RPM, we're going, how can I phrase this? We're going 55 miles an hour, which is the speed limit, and my radar detector is off by, 8 to 10 miles an hour. That's what we're doing, yep. So we'll just kind of see how this is essentially like a slower interstate speed cruise. Yep, coolant just dropped to 194, so that's kind of its hover point. Let's call it 190 to 200, but I'm pretty sure it sits right around 195 almost all the time for coolant temp. And this oil is just gonna kind of flutter around 150 for a while. It'll eventually come up, just gotta give it some time. You can see our mechanical gauge. The mechanical gauge works very well, but because it's square and not round like an actual gauge should be, it's just kind of hard to see the denominations a little bit, but it works. It gets the job done. First drive of the season, I have a video also out on this of me just kind of breaking the car out of winter storage, which is just my garage, but kind of my little process to getting a vehicle ready for springtime driving again, which consists of starting it up, maybe checking the oil if you're feeling very motivated, but I don't know. I put the car away for like 2 months, so the last drive in this car was December 10th, I think, December 2nd, something like that, and first drive of this year is March, it's like the 7th, yeah, March 7th, so that's not bad for a sports car in upstate New York. I'm like Capital District area, and it gets cold here, and we had a real cold winter, so the fact that it rained enough to make the roads look semi-decent, I'm very thankful for. Now it will probably snow again, they will have to salt again, I'll put the car away for another few weeks probably again, but you gotta get her out and take her for a rip when you get the chance. When you live in the Northeast, in my opinion, to each their own, unless you have a classic car, like a 60s car or whatever, you don't have the luxury of just letting it sit all the way until full-blown spring. You got to get it out when you can and really enjoy it, because your time is so limited. 170 on the oil temperature, so that means we're kind of creeping up toward our max value here. 196 on the coolant, so the coolant, like I said, is leveled out. It does level out to the left of the center of the gauge. Let's do a little just for my own vanity and to see what it does to oil temperature. So I didn't move it too much. That was like a 3/4 throttle, just 3/4 RPM pull. Oil is now warm enough, I'm not worried about doing that. 170 is plenty warm enough for doing stuff like that. But anyway, we're kind of cooking toward 180 now. That should have definitely added a little bit of heat into the oil, faster than it normally would have. But you can see we're 13 and a half minutes into this thing being started up, and that oil is still not fully up to temperature. So your experience may vary with your specific vehicle, but in my experience with this thing, you cannot just get in it, go, and expect to do pulls and really rev it out without having very cold oil and potentially doing engine damage. Other YouTubers I've watched, say that their vehicles heat up the oil temperature very, very quickly, like quicker than the coolant temp. I'm not saying that's not true with their specific vehicle. I've just personally not seen it. Unfortunately, my F-250 doesn't have an oil temp gauge, like a gauge with numbers on it. Although I could probably plug the OBD in and check that truck out. I should do that. I just thought of that. But anyway, my my Silverado has no temperature gauge whatsoever, so I have no idea what the oil temp's at. And then this car does, which is the only vehicle that I have a temperature gauge on. So my sample size is 1, so I'm not saying anybody's lying online. I'm just saying my experience has been much different. 185. Gauge is representing the same thing. Coolant temp still 194-ish. And it is still March 7th. What else can I do? I feel like a sportscaster announcer trying to fill the air with something interesting while you watch a very, very boring, section of the game. Like, they're in a timeout or whatever, right? Like, this is essentially, this whole video is just like a timeout. It's like once in a while, it's like, oh, now the temperature's at 188. Oh, it's so cool. For most people, they're not going to want to watch this, but I'm making this video for science. This is a scientific experiment with a sample size of 1, which is always very statistically significant. So, we hit the red light here, which is good because that'll give us another, acceleration point. Kind of see what it does to the oil temp. Now we're getting pretty close to operating temp, but that oil will get right to 210, which is, well, okay. Let me pause for a minute. Coolant's at 192. I actually think the oil floats around coolant temp in this car, i.e. that's going to be your max oil temp. So we'll watch it for a little bit longer, and then I'll close this video out. But now that I think about it, unless you're really beating on the car, I don't think you'll get that to come up to 210. Keep in mind, I haven't, again, driven this car in months, so I kind of don't quite remember, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So let's just drive around carefully and easily, and by that I mean with the flow of traffic, and we'll look at another minute or two, and then I'll let you guys, move on with your lives and do something far more productive than looking at a aging Camaro's oil temperature. Also, if this shirt collar annoys anybody, guess what? I really can't get it to stay down that easily, so deal with it. $192 coolant still, as I've said 14 times. 194 oil. Yeah, I think we're pretty much leveling out at this point. So I would say at 175, you could kind of consider it up to full temp. Obviously there's another 20 degrees there, but that's close enough. And that happened roughly around the 9-minute mark. So I think, that's kind of a safe time to go ahead and do a pull on the car if you wanted to and really tack it out. But other than that, yeah, there's really no particular conclusion. That's the data. Do with it what you'd like. Maybe that's good that the oil temp comes up slow like that. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's indifferent. Oh, one more thing. Trans temp is at like 160-ish probably now. I would say that's pretty normal. They'll probably hover around there as well. I mean, so I would say at this point, about 18 minutes into this drive, maybe only 15 minutes into the drive, the car is like fully warmed up. Like I said, these things just take a long time. None of this stuff warms up super quickly. So keep that in mind if you're driving a muscle car, specifically these Camaros. So anyways, guys, that'll end this one. As always, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll shift into 5th and see you on the next one. Goodbye.